Great, thanks Luciana. It's great to be with everybody. Thank you all for choosing to join us on a Friday afternoon online. We really appreciate your time and we're excited to get to know you and maybe your interest in the session a little bit later. I'm Jeremy Gadauskas from North Central College. I'm joined by two of our students, Emily Magala and Michael Dewey, to my right and left, at least on my view. So we will be sharing an overview of North Central College's new coffee lab that launched just about a year ago. Before I have them introduce themselves and talk more about who we are and where we're from, just a quick review of what the session's about and what we hope to do. As we wrote in the description, coffee has a history of bringing people together, but can it unite a campus and global partners for hands-on learning and social impact? We will tell you about our coffee lab, an interdisciplinary campus hub that uses coffee to fuel engaged learning, research, and a student-run business that helps lift coffee farmers out of poverty. And we hope to help you explore how you might create a similar campus-wide effort that crosses disciplines and borders. So that's where you're at. If that's the right room, stay here. And if it is, feel free to have others join us as well. Before we get started, we had just started doing this on North Central's campus, land recognition. So we're glad Ashoka has encouraged us to do that too. So I'm going to take just a moment to do a land recognition and pause for a few seconds of reflection after that. Even though at this point, the three of us are in very different lands. I'm still in Naperville, where North Central College is. Emily is in Wisconsin and Michael's in Florida, but we want to honor the land that North Central exists on. We'd like to recognize that North Central College occupies the land of the Council of Three Fires, the Ojibwa, Ottawa, and Potawatomi peoples, past and present. We acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced removal from this territory. And we honor, respect, and thank the many diverse Indigenous peoples still connected to this land on which we gather. We pause now to celebrate this ancestral land of the Council of Three Fires, remember people who have faced violence and exclusion in our community, and stand in solidarity with those who continue to battle hatred and racism today. All right, thanks. So with that, let's do some introductions. Again, my name is Jeremy Gadauskas. I am an assistant vice president at North Central College, and I co-direct our Center for Social Impact and teach social entrepreneurship classes through our interdisciplinary leadership ethics and values program. Let's go ahead and have Michael first and then Emily introduce themselves.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Dewey. I am a senior at North Central College majoring in social entrepreneurship, and I am the manager of the Coffee Lab.
Cool. And hey, I'm Emily. I'm finishing my junior year at North Central. I'm a global studies major, social change leadership minor, and we'll be studying abroad in Ireland in the fall. So
we hope.
Yeah, that's true.
And these are two excellent students, so I'm excited that you get to meet and hear from them mostly throughout the session. A little bit on North Central College. North Central College is located just west of Chicago, Illinois, and we have a mission that states that we exist to develop curious, engaged, ethical, and purposeful citizens and leaders in local, national, and global contexts. So this effort of the Coffee Lab is really embodying the principles that we hope to advance on our campus, and it's a great example of doing that. So I think we'll start first. Maybe a good place would be to go back in history. While the Coffee Lab is brand new in the last year as a facility, the project started 15 years ago, really based on the passion of two of our faculty, Jerry Tallman, professor of accounting, and Matt Crystal, professor of anthropology, who started this project back in 2005. So Emily's going to play a short video that gives you a quick snapshot overview of the history of the coffee project, and then we'll dive into it in a little bit more detail. So go ahead, Em.
Okay, here we go.
We first found out about the coffee through an event at my church, and somebody was selling the coffee from Guatemala. We had first gone down to visit the farmers just to find out about the project, and then we started going a couple times, and now we go twice every year.
It was really just this notion of let's go buy a coffee roaster to start roasting our own coffee. And over the course of the last 2.5 years, it's really kind of evolved into something much bigger than that. As we've been able to explore this notion of how we wanted our coffee lab to come to life, we actually worked together with SCAA and other members of the industry to say, how can we develop a program that would be complementary to what's already out there on a national scale?
From the business side, the nice thing is that we're going to be able to see the whole process from farmer to consumer.
My hope for the North Central College Coffee Lab is that we're engaging students across numerous academic disciplines. We're helping them give an inside look as to what it takes to run a coffee business. And then finally, working with industry to partner on research, connecting with students on lectures, and giving them an inside look at what companies are doing around the world.
The North Central College Coffee Lab gives me this great opportunity to take learning far beyond the classroom and use my marketing major really tangibly in this space.
If you think about coffee as a product and all the different disciplines it touches, marketing, management, accounting, chemistry, engineering, anthropology, sociology, agriculture, so it's really wide. And so this is not just about getting a roaster on campus and roasting our own coffee, but how can we engage students across a multitude of different disciplines?
Being a business student, this space is giving me the opportunity to look at the full scale of working with partners, importing, putting it in the space, production into packaging, and then the final selling process. And now we're even working on what does it look like to bring that full life cycle back together. And so I get to see the full spectrum of what operating a business looks like in a more controlled experience.
What we love about it is it's not confined in a small box. And as we continue to build upon it, we can actually take it, wherever its life is normally going to lead.
My goal, besides running and building the coffee lab, is largely to help create an ecosystem of entrepreneurship across campus.
All right, so that gives you a bit of a background. We're gonna jump into a little bit more detail, and then I'll give an overview, and then Michael and Emily are gonna talk about their experience specifically as students, both in the lab, through classes, through student organizations, and feel free anytime along the way to pop a comment or a question in the chat, and we can certainly get to that, and then we'll save time at the end for some QA as well, and then at the end we'll also give you a chance to probably break up into a couple of breakout groups to have some more in-depth discussion on what this could look like on your campus, not necessarily a coffee lab, but some sort of interdisciplinary project that can cross into community relationships as well. So I'm going to share a PowerPoint really quick. And we'll go from there. So as we said, and as the video stated too, this project started in 2005 and really has been a labor of love for a lot of folks on campus for a long time. In 2005, based on those connections that we had in Guatemala, we had started a student-led coffee business through Enactus, which is a student organization that we'll talk about more in just a minute. Really, the mission was to help small plot indigenous farmers gain better market access. And that's really the purpose that's driven this whole project all along. So since 2006, our faculty and students have been traveling to Guatemala 2 times per year. So a lot of students have been given the chance to actually go down, visit, meet, work with the coffee farmers, and really get a sense of the mission of the project. Coffee has really just been one aspect of the project as well. They've also worked on securing and selling textiles, chocolate, wooden products, pottery, and other things. Coffee is the one that kind of took on a life of its own and became a much bigger project. And so over those 15 years, we've continued to purchase from the same farmers. It's an association of roughly 50 families in this community. So as the project continued, in about 2017, just a few years ago, there were 5 students in an applied entrepreneurship class that had the goal of taking this to the next level. So they used that class to create a business plan, think about how we could grow and really institutionalize this coffee project. They explored academic opportunities, how they could contribute to and connect with the coffee industry, and really use coffee as an educational medium and a platform upon which lots of different disciplines could connect. So they actually came up with a proposal in 2017 that started to get shared and shopped around with administrative folks at the college. And that's the origins of what has become the lab. It turns out that we had the good fortune of having the chair of our board of trustees of the college, Jim McDermott, who just happened to be a former vice president of global operations at Starbucks. So he got involved and really took this project under his wing as well to help move it forward. Around this time, we had students that got to travel to the Specialty Coffee Expo in Seattle. And then we had a group that was just about ready to go to Portland to the conference. I think it was next week that was supposed to be scheduled. But they started to think of what would this facility look like if we could build one on campus. Really a roastery and a lab that could be a hands-on learning opportunity for students. So they started to write plans, rewrite plans, business plans upon business plans, and make some of the connections in the industry that would end up bearing fruit, including Probat, which is the company that graciously donated the roaster, which is kind of the centerpiece of the lab. So about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we decided to kind of take it to the next level, and we hired a recent graduate as an entrepreneur in residence who was also getting his MBA at North Central, really to build out and launch this lab. So along that time, we had lots of course, input and work done from our business operations team, from our cabinet, from our vice president leadership at the college to really carve out a space where this could exist. So we found an old dilapidated building on campus. Believe it or not, every campus has one of these. And we thought, could we breathe some new life into a space that's been neglected? And so there was an old building that we realized actually has a lot of potential. It had some good, the layout was good, had some great windows, had some great access to a adjacent auditorium that we're also renovating. And we thought, what if we could turn that into the coffee lab? So if you can see in those pictures before, and then when we started constructing, where those wooden planks are in the back, and then pretty soon it became this, which is the coffee lab. And you can see the roaster kind of in the center there. So that's where we ended up. And this was the ribbon cutting, the obligatory huge scissors, smiling faces with the president and the board chair and some students and the 2 faculty who have been involved for a long time. That's where we ended up just about a year ago this spring. So I'm going to pause here, and then I think, Emily, if you want to just maybe give us a little bit more background on Enactus as a student organization. What is it? What's the purpose of it? And how have students really been at the core of this effort from the beginning?
Yeah, so Enactus is an international organization. It stands for Entrepreneurial Action in Us. It's the idea that you're learning entrepreneurial and business principles with the emphasis on social impact, so that we can build up leaders to build a more ethical and sustainable world. So we just have one chapter of hundreds around the world on our campus. And each chapter is running different projects, different ventures that they've either partnered with local community organizations or global organizations to create new ventures and help students learn that practical business element, as well as how to incorporate impact work and change making into their businesses. So the coffee project that we're talking about is just one project that our chapter runs amongst a variety. We also are selling chocolate and textiles from Guatemala, as well as running some local community projects as well. So that's
Great.
kind of our own chapter's story.
Great, thanks, Em. Let's jump into, well, these are the 4 areas that we want to cover, 4 functions. Really, there are lots. We tried to boil them down to these 4 functions. The business aspect of the lab. It is a coffee business that students run. The student experience and the student engagement component of it, that's included in, but sometimes separate from the business. The academic connections that exist with the lab, and then some of the external partnerships that we have with the coffee industry and also the Guatemalan farmers. So we're going to touch on each of those areas really briefly. Oh, and this was some of the students in the Enactus chapter. Michael, do you want to start with just kind of talking about the coffee business?
Yeah, definitely. So we kind of have a few pillars, I think it's on the next screen, that we kind of try to run the operations on. So we have the sales. So that's individual, consumer to consumer sales. But then we also are selling to different businesses. We have a lot of sales on campus. As you can see in the picture, those are our 3 products that we offer. So we have a 12-ounce bag, a 5-pound bag, and a box of compostable single serving cups. So that was one of the key things when we started selling the single serving cups, is we wanted to make sure they were compostable, because we did not want to add that a detrimental environmental impact on there. So we also have gotten into roasting for other businesses. So we've roasted for 2 businesses so far. That's an area that we're looking to expand further, and then also public classes. So we want to just teach on simple things like how you can brew different brewing methods at home, and then also some more in-depth classes for people trying to get into the coffee business. They can go learn about roasting, and then just for kind of some fun, casual, come and do some coffee tastings. So those are kind of the 3 pillars that we are running off of. Right now, we've mainly focused on the sales, as we, in this first year, as we've started to branch out some of the other with roasting in the public classes. So then also kind of just going into like what our philosophy is and how we actually run the lab. So we have a direct trade partnership with the farmers. So kind of a fun little saying there, it's fairer than fair trade. So our whole purpose is to cut out any middlemen that don't add value in the supply chain. So we work directly with our farmers. Our farmers, they harvest the beans, the cherries, they sell them to the local farmers association, and then they do all the process right there in San Lucas that needs to be done until it's shipped to us in the form that's ready to be roasted. And we cut out importers and other middlemen who are only taking away profits from the farmers, and they aren't really adding any value to the supply chain. So also another part of the lab is we want to be able to reinvest into the business and also the students. So we want to reinvest into travel and different research. Like we had mentioned, there's some different science departments that are able to work with us and figuring out how we can incorporate new lines of our coffee products. And also one of the main things that we want to do is emphasize that consumer education for people to realize how they can help and how they can make conscious consumption habits when it comes to their coffee, and how they can do some of that research to figure out it's more than just a cup of coffee. And I've come to realize that working with the farmers and getting to meet the farmers and really realizing how beneficial this truly is to them. You'll be able to hear from one of the farmers later on, but our whole mission is centered around impacting the lives of the farmers. So we're not when we set goals, we're not setting goals based on how much money we want to make as a business, but we want to increase the number of units sold, because when it comes down to it, the more units of coffee that we sell, the more farmers we can buy from in Guatemala. So that's like what our entire mission and everything that we do is really centered around. And we also think it's just so incredible that we can connect the consumers to where they actually got their cup of coffee. So if you look at the 2 photos on the screen there, those are 2 of the actual farmers who farm the product. And so on the back of all of our bags, we have a picture and a little saying from, right now we have 15 different farmers that we've taken pictures of and just gotten a saying of like what the coffee in this project means to them. So it's just such a unique opportunity for consumers to actually know the faces and the people that they're supporting.
That's great. Thanks, Michael. Now let's shift to some of the student engagement opportunities or some of the student experience. And one of those ways that students can connect is by actually traveling to Guatemala. Emily, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience maybe doing that, and then some other ways that students can connect?
Yeah, I would say personally, and I think this is probably a similar experience for a lot of students joining Enactus and being part of the coffee project, is that I came into college only knowing one way to engage in creating change in the world, and that was nonprofit work. And so I just kind of assumed that was going to be my path. And so Enactus and being part of the coffee project was the first time that I really was introduced to a whole nother way to promote and create change in the world, and that impact piece that accompanies business. So beyond that, there's so much more, but I just thought that was important to share how it was the first time my eyes have been opened to the field of change making that we're in. So, but one of the ways that this project specifically is changing students' lives is by inviting them to go to Guatemala and meet and work with the farmers. We have meals with them and sometimes stay in their homes, and just get to really become partners and become friends with these families that are producing the product that we're purchasing. And so I think it's kind of a life-changing experience to go and just connect personally in that way. Another way, beyond just going, or not just going to Guatemala, but beyond going to Guatemala, is on campus. When we come back, we get to share those stories. There's a lot of different events that we promote our coffee or sell our coffee at, but we also have free coffee hours where we engage the entire student body that is just passing by and promote what we're doing through the coffee project and through the coffee lab, and invite them into the space, invite them to have a cup of coffee with us. And it's a really unique way that we're connecting with students across all disciplines, whether they're residents or commuters. And it's always Friday mornings, and I think, Michael, I haven't made it on, but they're even creating virtual coffee hours now that were not on campus. So I think that's a really unique way that students are being engaged. Even if you're not part of an Actus, you still get to be on campus and be part of what we're doing, if you're not even showing up for the meetings. And then lastly, one other way that I've found has been the most impactful as a student is that I get to engage with different offices and administration and kind of network in a way around campus in a way that I don't think a lot of students usually get to interact with their college or university. Through either serving at different meetings. Once a month, I find myself serving coffee at a dean's meeting, and they just reach out to me with the hours, and I'm able to bring the coffee to them. And or in the marketing office, they buy our K-cups and we deliver them. And so it's just partnering with different offices in that way has been really unique way to engage with the college itself, and then to create those relationships on campus that you wouldn't have otherwise made. So overall, it's like such an incredibly enriching experience personally, and then internationally. I've gotten to travel and then network on campus and reach out to a greater audience of students and faculty and staff in that way, and connect more, which I think is incredible and pretty unique, that one organization can allow all of that to happen. So that's from a student perspective, but I know there's a lot that is also academic too. So beyond just being part of the organization, you also get to engage, and I think we're talking about that next in the academic.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Emily. Michael, anything else you'd add on kind of the student experience before we jump to academic connections?
Yeah, just honestly, like an Actus really did change my entire college experience. Like this whole project I was planning on, I was looking into transferring after, halfway through my freshman year, and then I got involved in an Actus. And I mean, there's the tangible business skills and the networking and the connections, which are incredible. But I mean, that's really what made North Central home to me, getting to know professors and being able to go into their office and talk to them, whether it's about, what I want to do with my future. Also having friends, having that community, but it honestly also changed my mind with my career path. I wanted to do business and I wanted to make a difference in the world, and I didn't realize you could do both of those at the same time. So this really honestly did change my life for sure.
That's cool. So before we jump to academics, there's one metric that I've always wanted to measure and that is the number of students that have tasted Enactus coffee on campus. We'll talk maybe in a second about the impact on the farmers, but I'm just curious if we could ever measure, because the coffee is so prevalent across our campus through the coffee hours, and I order it for my classes sometimes, and it's in our offices around campus. I'm just curious how many students have actually tasted it, but for another day. So let's move on. Michael, you want to start on academic opportunities? Really, one of the goals of the lab was to connect as broadly as possible across the disciplines. And so you want to mention a few of the things here?
Yeah, definitely. So you can see the asterisk next to some of the disciplines that are currently in process technically with a class, bridging specific class activities into that. So the engineering department is working with our roaster, looking through the manual, understanding that. The chemistry department is testing our water quality, because water quality actually plays a huge factor into the taste of your coffee. So if you have like a really purified water that you're using when brewing, is going to bring out the best flavors of coffee. So they're testing our water with that. Anthropology is a lot about the studies that we do as we travel down to Guatemala twice a year. Accounting, they come in and do variance analysis. So we had a large event and we had 200 bags of coffee that we packaged. And so the accounting class came in and measured every single one of the bags. And so they were able to, apply that variance principle that they were learning in the textbook, but to a real life product that served us and served them for their learning opportunity. And then the arts, just coming up with different designs and whatnot for our different projects. But I mean, honestly, all of these are used in kind of like an informal necessary aspect where it's not necessarily a class that's using it. But when it comes to marketing, I mean, we're marketing our events, we're marketing our product. We're having online. I mean, finance, we have to, be able to make decisions and look at where we are, with our costs and our revenues and our sales and looking forward. Entrepreneurship, I mean, we're running a business, and then management as well. There's people that are a part of that. With the environmental aspects, we're always trying to reduce the impact that our project has. Our 12-ounce bags are compostable, and we're always looking for ways to increase our environmental sustainability when it comes to the project. So while those might be some specific ones that are, used as classes, as students who are running the business and involved in it, I mean, we're taking principles and concepts that we're learning in class and actually applying them right there to a real business. So it really is an incredible academic opportunity.
I'll also add that there's a couple other ways. Our professor, Jerry Tallman in accounting, he actually has a coffee class that he runs. Is that the name of it? The coffee class? He calls it the coffee class, but he uses coffee in the entire class as a way of teaching accounting. We also decided to use our transfer seminar in our new curriculum that just launched last fall. We have a new transfer seminar to help get students connected to the institution and some of those important transition things. All of those, as their community engaged learning component of that class, are connecting with the Coffee Lab. So that's almost a couple hundred students, I think, per year that connect with the lab just through their transfer seminar, which is pretty great. I've had the joy of having both of these students in class, and one of those classes was what we call Lead 200 Social Innovation last fall, and both Emily and Michael, as their class project, which was really about systems mapping, looked at the coffee industry, especially in Guatemala, as their project for that class. Do you guys want to touch on just what you did and what you learned from that?
Yeah, we were able to look at the micro level of coffee industry in Guatemala, as well as like the broader international coffee industry, and understand the movement of it and how it interacts with government and the environment and economics and all the different ways that this one single drink that we have in the morning is impacting the world in a huge way. And just having a really in-depth look at that system. I actually think that Anna from Skull is giving a presentation on mapping the system later today. But yeah, just totally understanding the system of coffee so that we can then look for the gaps within the coffee industry to understand like what are the levers of change that we can pull on to see the areas or that we can work on creating change in to make the system better. So.
Cool. And then Michael, you're also finishing up in this next week social impact measurement class. Do you want to talk about how you're hoping to use that as a way to measure the impact of the lab?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, as we look at the coffee lab and the project, we are able to see, that it is making an impact on, the lives of the farmers just through talking to them, that relationship. When we buy their coffee from them, we buy it. We don't look at what the market price is. We base it on our relationship with them. So we go to them and ask them, what do you need to sell the coffee at for you guys to thrive? Like, what is that? And so right now it happens to be double what the market price is. So they're able to sell it at a very stable and sustainable price. So we're looking to measure what that impact truly is in that class. So we're trying to put together a social impact measurement plan because we can look at the lab and think, wow, that's a good thing. But we want to be able to quantify how good that is. What are areas that we can improve on? What are areas that are actually detrimental in the lab that we either need to stop doing or improve, or what are ways that we can improve the things that are working well right now. So this has been a really cool opportunity to be able to quantify, look at how we even quantify, how good or what the impact is of the coffee lab.
Great. All right, let's jump to some of the external partnerships and opportunities. As I mentioned before, early on, we started making some of these connections as we were looking to launch the lab, not only for the actual physical equipment that would be nice to get donated, but also the connections that would benefit our students as we try to be a significant partner in the industry. So, Michael, you want to mention any of these and how they've worked out for us?
Yeah, definitely. So Probat, they donated the roaster to us, so that's extremely important for our operations. Bun gives us the supplies that we need for grinding and brewing on campus. Chemex and AeroPress are two different brewing methods. Cropster is a great technology that analyzes your roasts, so you can look at the different roasting profiles, make sure you're getting the best, most consistent profile every time. And then everything else is kind of just either different, software for roasting or different brewing tools, gadgets, and gizmos.
Nice. Yeah, and I think you can mention this at the end, we were looking forward to having a roasting summit that was going to involve a lot of the industry folks at the end, but we had to cancel that, unfortunately, in March, as we needed to. Of course, the biggest external partnership is really the coffee farmers, and so we wanted to give everyone a chance to hear directly from them. So Emily's got a couple of short videos that she's going to play just to give you a chance to hear directly from the farmers.
Yeah, so here's Eddie.
El café que ellos van a consumir y que compren trae un valor humano, desde los niños hasta las familias. Y cuando ellos consuman un café como este de Juan Ana, están beneficiando a una familia luqueña y, por qué no decirlo, guatemalteca.
So that was Eddie. He's the director of the Farmers Association that we're partnered with in Guatemala. And then this is one of our farmers.
Muchas gracias a ustedes que vienen a ver el café y que nos compren. Entonces, muchísimas gracias a ustedes. Ustedes saben que nosotros aquí tenemos hijos y los patojos quieren pistos, quieren muchas cosas y nosotros no podemos dar, pero con la ayuda después que allá nos dan, nosotros juntamos un poco el dinero y nosotros estamos muy agradecidos con ustedes. Y pues...
And so those little red cherries is actually what coffee is. So coffee is actually the pit of a cherry. So those really red, ripe cherries is what they'll harvest. And then inside are two little pods of what kind of, that resemble more the form of what we think of when we see coffee.
Great. All right, well, in just a minute or two, would love to invite everybody who's on with us to, if you're comfortable, share your video and we'll have a little bit of a discussion. But before we do that, Michael, do you want to just talk about kind of how the coronavirus situation has impacted the lab. Obviously, we, as the college, we had to shut down, and you're still trying to do some things to keep the business moving and to help provide kind of to some needs. Do you want to talk about that impact and where the lab is headed?
Yeah, definitely. So I think one of the largest impacts is we had a roasting summit coming up, which is a great opportunity for us to partner with experts in the industry. It was going to be a day devoted to roasting, to learning, to just everything, all things coffee. So we had quite a few industry professionals coming out to present on, we're going to talk about the economics of the coffee industry. Just a lot of great things that we had lined up. And so unfortunately we had to postpone that. We moved that into the fall now. So we're hoping that that'll give us more time to, kind of garner some more of that interest, get some more connections. I think that we were still able to really accomplish a lot of the goals that we had. Roast Magazine talked about it. An email was sent out to everybody that's part of the Specialty Coffee Association mentioning the event. So while it was a bummer, we're excited to hopefully have an even larger event in the fall now that we have more time to plan for it. So with the lab being shut down, we weren't able to access, we weren't able to access any of our supplies or anything. So we were able to actually partner with a local business that used to roast our coffee before we had the lab. So we just put out some orders today, which was great. So again, just kind of learning those business principles hands-on of like, all right, well, we can't enter the lab. We can't, sell things how we normally do. What can we do? How can we problem solve? How can we, adapt and overcome? We also have an option online where you can donate a 5-pound bag to healthcare workers. So trying to make that opportunity where, we can, as a collective community, give back to those serving on the front line. So, we're trying to take this time to plan for the future. We want to offer, some more, start offering public classes to kind of all different skill levels when it comes to coffee and all different interests. And start adding some new sources of coffee as well, so we can, transfer this, this impact that we've had in this relationship with Guatemalan farmers to other farmers across the world.
That's great. Michael, do you want to mention kind of your personal plans now that you're graduating, what you hope to be doing over the next 2 years?
Yes. Yeah. So this is a great opportunity for me to come on as the graduate assistant for the coffee lab. So I'll be able to get my MBA and then continue on as the roaster and running the operations of the coffee lab. And again, be able to take those business skills I'll be learning through the MBA and apply them hands-on directly right to the lab.
That's great. So really, we do see the lab as an experiential learning opportunity for students. In addition to Michael, who will still continue on with us, we have an alum who graduated about a year ago who went to work for Starbucks and was part of launching their kind of world famous large roastery in downtown Chicago. So she's working for Starbucks downtown, but then is also going to provide us with some consulting and some of her training and expertise in roasting as well. So it's nice to have current students, recent graduates, and alumni still being able to connect in this project. So we can all just keep in this one room, Luciana. So, and hopefully just have some discussions. I'm going to pop a thing in the chat, just saying, who are you and what interested you in this session? And you're welcome to jump on if you want, share your video, or just use your audio, or just sit back and listen if you'd rather not, that's fine too. I've done that in a few sessions where I just needed to get some things done and wanted to listen in, so that's no problem. But for those of you maybe who have your video on, we could just, if you want to say hello and tell us who you are, where you're from, and what got you interested in this topic, that'd be great. Maybe Ginny, you were on there first. You want to say hello?
Hi. So I am so excited because I actually grew up in Naperville. Like I grew up like down the street from North Central. So it's really exciting to see how you all have grown this project. I didn't really know it existed when I lived there, but it's super amazing to see that. And now I actually work at Vanderbilt University where I did my undergrad. And funny enough, my boss is actually really, really interested in getting like a coffee project started here at Vanderbilt. So my question for you all was really to talk about the like administrative aspect of it. Like, how did you get different professors and faculty to buy in? How did you get student organizations to like get involved and take ownership over this project? And like, what actually made it happen so that you were able to build up this center?
Yeah,
that's a great question. You want to start, Michael?
Yeah.
From your perspective,
Yeah. So I think one of the key things that were, I mean, key things to buy in is we had two professors. So one of them was the one who had, the impact at his church where he had met the organization. And there was another anthropology professor who actually did his studies in Guatemala. So it was kind of a perfect little connection where he was very familiar on kind of the local culture and whatnot and spoke Spanish. So that was also a huge plus. But then we also had an Enactus team present. And so Enactus chapters can be formed at any school. I'm not sure if Vanderbilt has it, but there's like over 450 in the nation, from schools as small as us, with 3,000 plus students, to large universities like U of I and University of Wisconsin. So that I think was the core, is having already a student group that was dedicated to that entrepreneurship and how entrepreneurship can make the world a better place. So while I think that was huge, I think that having the students buy in, so if there are any sort of like social impact clubs or business clubs or kind of anything like that, I think those would be two really awesome things to put together. And I think that once, the opportunity to travel down to Guatemala and see the impact that it had, I think that really gets people excited and really takes them from that next level of hearing the stories of, seeing their friends and their excitement to feeling that personal excitement on their own. So I would say those are kind of a few of the really key things, is just to have professors who are really willing to, stick it out. There was obviously quite a few years as that relationship was building where things didn't quite take off. But I mean, it took 14 years for us to come to this point at the lab, which I think we all would probably agree that we never, when they started, they never would have thought that it would come to that.
Yeah, and I would just add to what Michael said, and I think the more opportunities you can create to give people a connection point, one, connecting it to the mission of the institution and the values and the purpose and all of that. And I think as we reinvented, like really in some ways, the college over the last few years with the new general education curriculum, new strategic plan, new academic calendar, we were going through lots of change, and this fit squarely in like what we said we were about. And so while I think the two faculty who have been involved for a long time would say they felt like they were almost toiling in the shadows for years, until the board chair got involved and supported them. And really, we could embody the project in a physical space that was very visible and really useful in terms of marketing and attracting new students and things like that. But it was really a slow process of letting people, giving people an opportunity and an invitation to be connected to it. So the more faculty I think that got connected and said, oh, my discipline that's seemingly unrelated to coffee could connect in some meaningful way, that was really helpful. Same thing with student organizations, with different staff departments and things like that. So that's great. Thanks, Jenny. It's really nice to meet you. We should talk more for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Kevin, you want to say hello?
Oh, hi. Yes, I'm Kevin. I'm from Ottawa, Canada. And I run a social innovation lab, and we've been looking around for opportunities to start a student-led enterprise. And we just built this amazing new innovation building where my lab is, but there's no food or beverages in it. And so we all want to know where we get the coffee.
It's a good question. Well, Michael can ship you some next day.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it looks like a wonderful program. It seems to bring together a lot of different people, and you never know, maybe we'll have a coffee lab.
Yeah, that'd be great. Oh, I think it's great that you've got a space already, and if you can be inventive within the space and build out some projects, you never know what might take off, right? If the right people get involved and interested. So that's great.
How much does that big roaster cost?
Pretty expensive. We got it donated. Michael, do you remember what the retail price was?
Yeah, it was about $40,000.
Yeah, so that's a nice gift. And I think
very nice gift, yes.
And it took building that relationship, and I think I won't speak for Probat, but I think they were excited about being part of a lab like this that was really in some ways, I wouldn't say the first of its kind, but the first of its kind in this specific focus. The folks that, Michael could tell you more, but there's a couple other schools that we're aware of, at least across the country, that have coffee labs or coffee projects. They're a little bit different in focus, but it's really a unique thing. So I think industry partners were excited to say like, hey, we want to be part of this experience. And especially if college students get exposed to the industry and those products and make connections, it's going to benefit the industry as a whole.
Great, thanks.
So yeah, thanks, Kevin. Holly, did you want to say hello?
Hi, thank you
Hi.
for the presentation. That was so fun and great job. I visited North Central and it's a beautiful campus. So it was fun for me to kind of think about where these things were. So I have a little bit of a different interest in this. So I'm with the University of Evansville and I run our Harlexton campus, which is a historic manor house in the countryside of England. And most of our students go there for a semester or a year. And we're thinking about starting a tea shop along this line. So it fits us really well, both in the US and in the UK. Obviously, tea is different in many ways from coffee, but I think I could learn a lot from you guys. And I would love to connect and get some advice on how we could look at this from a slightly different angle that fits us. I love the fact that the tea fit you. Historically, you had the faculty members working on it. And so in considering what fits us, I think tea fits us well.
That's great. I would love to hear how that goes. And I'm actually a much bigger tea drinker than I am coffee. Michael will tell you, if you get a cup of coffee in me during a class, there's no shutting me up. So, but no, I think what we hope to show, and even by doing the session, is coffee is just our thing right now, I think, but it could be tea, it could be beer, it could be socks, whatever it is that helps you connect with someone outside of the campus and gives students an opportunity to experience business, running a business and doing that whole thing, I think could be really beneficial. So, and I really appreciate Evansville. Got to know some of your folks as we were going through the Changemaker selection process. So I didn't mention North Central became a Changemaker campus about 2 years ago, and we were along the process with Evansville. So you have some great folks there, and congrats to you as well.
Absolutely, thanks. And I'll catch you guys maybe after this to get, especially Michael, if you're staying on this next year, maybe some of your expertise in the MBA program could help with the idea, developing the idea with the tea shop. So appreciate it.
Definitely, I think that'd be awesome. I put our email in the chat if you have any further questions.
That's great. Thanks, Holly. It's great to meet you. One of our colleagues, Margaret, is on with us. Hey, Margaret, you want to say hello?
Hi, sure, yeah. Excited to be here. I work in the Center for Social Impact along with Jeremy, and Emily is one of our student workers. So I work, and Michael's one of my students. So I'm excited to be here and learn a little bit more about the great things that you all are accomplishing. So thanks.
Cool. Well, if anyone else who's on wants to, flip on your video or just pop a question or comment in the chat, feel free to do that. I think one of the other questions we were curious about, and maybe if you have anything else to share from your campuses, just getting to think about these types of projects. Are there any existing projects on your campus that reach across disciplines like we're trying to do, or that have partnerships in the community, either locally or globally, that you'd want to share as kind of other best practices? So I don't know if anyone has anything they'd like to contribute to that.
I'm happy to share our project, or one of our projects.
Yeah.
So it's a project that we have. We build backyard barns. So they're for Habitat for Humanity, and they go with our Habitat homes that are built locally. But we also then build regionally, and we build globally. So it's not a product we sell, but they're very cross-disciplinary. Our engineers, our theater tech students, our healthcare workers, our sociology, anthropology. There's just such a collective around these barns. It's amazing. And like you said, Michael, they test them, they measure them, they all sorts of things, and of course hammer the nails and build them. So that's been a really great collective for us that was both local and global.
That's great. Good example. Never would have guessed barns, but that's really cool. That's really neat. Kevin, I'm interested in what else you do in your innovation lab there. Anything you want to share?
Yeah, so In the Innovation Lab, what I do is I actually hire students in cohorts of multidisciplinary students, largely in design and engineering, sort of mostly focused on digital technology. And we do open calls to our community and do projects for them. So for social enterprises and nonprofits, and we do it all for free. And the students all work together in teams full-time over the summer. And so we're able to, usually most summers, we're able to help about 10 different organizations. And it really broad, like it could be, we could help them with, developing websites, branding, advertising, understanding target markets, implementing different kinds of technology, because a lot of the social enterprises are falling behind a bit in technology, and our students are awesome at it. So that's my main thing that I do, is we help local organizations in our community with digital technology.
That's great. Are those usually short-term projects, or have any of those lasted longer?
No, almost all of them are short-term projects. And it's really about helping them find their way with technology, like what technology they can use, and helping them set it up so that they can actually use it. Because a lot of them we find are a little scared of technology. But once we get in there and just show them what to do and what they need to do, they're all over it. So it's worked really well, and it's really embedded for the students a better understanding of all the local groups in the community that sort of provide a social safety net. So that it's been really rewarding that way. The students all really love it.
That's great. Thanks for sharing. Ginny, did you mention
Yeah.
what you do there?
Sure,
Tell us more
so,
about what you got going on at Vanderbilt.
Yeah, jumping off a little bit of what Kevin just spoke about, I work at the Wondery at Vanderbilt. It's our innovation and entrepreneurship center on campus. Only 3 years old at this point, but this past year we actually started a program called the Social Venture Think Tank, where similarly we bring together students from multidisciplinary teams of like 3 to 7 students who work with a local nonprofit organization like Kevin's group to solve some sort of technological issue. But what's interesting at Vanderbilt, and probably at many of your campuses as well, is that there are so many different student organizations and even departments within the university that all are doing wonderful work trying to change the world. But I think what I'm really struggling with, and our department is struggling with, is like, how do you kind of combine resources and bridge the gap between all of the different programs that are trying to do different things at the same time? And I think there's a sense of continuity that I think we could really capitalize on, because at the moment our think tank program is just a semester long and like ends at the end of the semester. And if you didn't get it all done, like, what are you going to do with it? So I'm really enjoying learning about what different opportunities there are to like build larger projects and longer scale projects that harness the opportunities of groups of students that are really invested in it. So.
Cool. That's awesome. That's one of the coolest names I've ever heard, the Wondery. It's a nice job on that.
It's like Wonder apostrophe Foundry. We combined it to, I don't know what it means. It's cool branding. So
oh, I like it a lot. No, that's cool. And good luck with that. I think the more, typically any of these projects needs a champion, right? And somebody who's passionate about it and who finds partnerships and goes around to find like-minded people who can play a role. So I'm sure you're going to do a good job at that. That's great.
Thank you.
And come back to Naperville sometime and say hello. Nico put a question in there. Michael, you might want to answer this one, just if they're interested in kind of enact this as an organization or bringing a chapter to their campus.
Yeah, definitely. So all it takes is you need to have an advisor and have students. If you go to enactus.org, you should be able to find out more specific information there. If you reach out, they're really, really helpful. There was a college just about 40 minutes away from us that just started up their team this year, and they said the process was great, but they just had a professor that was kind of willing to lead the team, and then they just spread around interest, have a student who's willing to be a part of it. And they have, Enactus is great. They have a lot of onboarding programs for new teams where they'll partner you up with with an existing team, so you can kind of learn from them. They can kind of be your mentors. And then there's an opportunity for scholarships for the whole team to come down to the national competition, where all the teams in the country kind of can come and present their projects that they've worked on. And so there's scholarships for first year teams to come and do that. But I would recommend checking out enactus.org.
And if we didn't highlight this, I really do think the kind of the student leadership component of this coffee project is really what's made it successful over the years, is to have, and it happens to be through our chapter of Enactus, but on any other campus, it could be whatever, body kind of gets students connected. But that's been the chance for them to really take ownership and give them leadership opportunities. And coffee, again, is just one of those projects that they're doing, but they attend the regional and national events and competitions and present on all their projects. That's a really great opportunity through that. We've got just a couple minutes. Had we been in Minnesota with all of you, Michael and Emily would have been brewing coffee as we speak, so that you could all taste some and leave it with you. So you might just have to go to your cabinet, and if you don't have anything better than Folgers, you might just have to brew yourself a cup, and just don't tell Michael.
I did actually have a question going off of that for Michael and Emily. Is there anything that you've taken away from working in this process about like buying coffee or like supporting the kind of businesses that you'd like to support? Like, what have you learned and how do you buy your coffee now?
Oh man, I could do a whole talk on that. You can go ahead, Em.
I'd say that it really has shaped the way I consume everything. So not only am I, coffee was the catalyst for how I began thinking about just purchasing in general. So I look for understanding like if the coffee I'm purchasing has a really transparent supply line or supply chain, and can I see start to finish where they're what their processes are. And that's how I kind of look at the clothing I buy as well. And that's really like opened up my consumption habits in terms of clothing too, knowing like if a company has really transparent and ethical and sustainable business practices, I'm much more willing to invest in their products. But it's a lot of more research, of course, than just going and picking up a bag off the shelf now, where it used to be a lot easier. So that's my experience. But.
Michael, can you condense your diatribe into like 60 seconds?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I again agree with everything that Emily said. And I think that is just really important to try to look at, make the conscious decisions. So kind of the way I look at it is, I'll break down our price. So, if we sell it for $10 a pound, 4 of it is going to the farmers, just $2 in shipping. So if you're buying coffee from, and then, we have profit there. So if you're buying a pound of coffee for $5, $6, I can't promise that there's, not the greatest practices going on, but just kind of looking at those numbers, there's not a lot of room for the farmers to be profiting from the farmers to be kind of doing well from a business standpoint. So that's just kind of doesn't necessarily mean that, buying $90 coffee is going to be, benefiting the farmers, but that's just kind of one principle that I've kind of taken to look at.
That's great. Well, it looks like we're out of time. We'd love to continue the conversation. So for those of you who are interested, feel free to contact us. I think Emily put the website, the Coffee Lab website in there. Michael dropped in the Coffee Lab email. I'll go ahead and just type my email in here as well. If anybody wants to connect afterwards, that would be great. Luciana, thank you for your great work this week at the Exchange. I know it's been a lot of lifting for the Ashoka team, so thanks for moderating and handling all the technology for these sessions. We appreciate it.
Thank you. This was great.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining. Nice to meet you all, and go grab a cup of coffee and have a great afternoon or evening, wherever you're at.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Yep.